The number appeared first. Not on television. Not in an official statement. Not in any place meant to be trusted. It appeared on a scrolling counter at the bottom of a live stream, ticking upward like a pulse that refused to slow. 100,000. 250,000. 500,000. By the time the sun rose, the number had crossed 710,000. 710,000 people demanding one thing. Justice for Yoon Menlong. It didn't begin as a protest. It began as a question. A single post shared in the early hours of the morning, attached to a grainy clip from the leaked drone footage and a fragment of the goodbye song playing faintly in the background. Why was he already saying goodbye? No hashtags. No slogans. Just that question. And the world answered. Screens filled with paused frames from the drone video, Yoon bound to the rusted pillar, the chalk circle glowing pale beneath industrial lights, the hooded figure frozen mid-motion. People slowed the footage, brightened it, mirrored it, analyzed every shadow. They compared the symbols on the ground to the ones etched on the hidden phone. They overlaid the song's waveform on the footage timeline and watched it align with terrifying precision. The story stopped being a rumor. It became a pattern. By noon, city squares were filled, not with chants, but with silence. People stood holding phones instead of signs, replaying the song through shared speakers. The piano echoed between buildings. The lyrics floated through streets like a collective mourning. Remember me breathing. Some cried. Some stared ahead, unmoving. Some filmed, knowing this too might disappear if not captured. The shocking footage spread faster than anyone could contain it. New angles surfaced. Extended frames. A previously unseen 5 seconds where Yoon lifted his head and looked directly toward the drone, eyes clear despite everything, as if he knew exactly what he was doing. As if he knew this was how the truth would survive. Dark rumors followed quickly. People whispered that the abandoned lot had been cleaned less than an hour after the drone fell. That security cameras along 3 surrounding streets had been temporarily offline that night. That an entire server cluster belonging to a private contractor went dark the moment the footage leaked. Others claimed something even more disturbing. That Yoon wasn't the first. Names began circulating, some familiar, some forgotten. Faces pulled from old articles, erased interviews, unfinished investigations. 17 names. Always 17. Always the same number appearing like a ghost at the edge of every conversation. The list Yoon sang about. The list no one was supposed to see. As outrage grew, official statements grew thinner. Vague reassurances. Promises of review. Carefully worded denials that never addressed the footage directly. Never explained the chalk circle. Never mentioned the hidden phone. Never acknowledged the song. Silence spoke louder than words. At exactly 7:10 p.m., something unprecedented happened. Across multiple cities, people synchronized their devices. The goodbye song played at the same moment, spilling out of apartments, cars, cafes, subway platforms. For 4 minutes and 12 seconds, the world listened together. Traffic slowed. Voices lowered. The city breathed in unison. And when the final unresolved note faded, the chant began, not shouted, not angry, but steady. Say his name. Again. And again. And again. Yoon Menlong. The demand wasn't for vengeance. It wasn't for chaos. It was for answers. Why was a hidden phone planted in his home? Why did the same symbol appear in the apartment, the abandoned lot, and the leaked files? Why did witnesses flee instead of calling for help? Why did a song written days earlier describe events that hadn't yet happened? Each question tightened the net. Inside anonymous forums, panic leaked through the cracks. Accounts posted warnings, then vanished. Threads were locked mid-sentence. Screenshots showed internal messages begging for containment, urging speed, urging silence. Too many eyes. Song compromised everything. List exposure imminent. The rumors grew darker. That the hooded figure wasn't acting alone. That the organization had roots inside systems people trusted blindly. That Yoon's mistake wasn't curiosity, but refusal. He didn't agree to forget. And that made him dangerous. By the second night, the number rose again. 730,000. Then higher. People who had never heard his name now knew his voice. Knew the way his piano hesitated before the chorus. Knew the pain hidden in the line he never sang twice the same way. He stopped being a victim. He became a symbol. Not of tragedy, but of choice. The footage kept resurfacing no matter how often it was removed. Mirrors appeared. Backups multiplied. Someone projected a still frame of Yoon's face onto the side of a building near the industrial district. Another projected the waveform of the song across a public square, its peaks and valleys glowing like a heartbeat. And then came the moment that shifted everything. A new clip surfaced, short, unverified, devastating. It showed Yoon, earlier that same night, seated alone at his piano. No fear in his posture. No rush in his movements. Just focus. He looked at the camera and said quietly, "If this goes quiet, it means they won. If it gets loud, you're listening." The clip ended. That was all it took. Justice was no longer a request. It was a demand. 710,000 people weren't asking for permission. They were asking why a man who wrote a goodbye song, recorded evidence in melody, and trusted the truth enough to leave it behind was met with silence instead of protection. The dark rumors are still spreading. The footage is still circulating. The song is still playing. And somewhere, the people responsible understand a terrible truth. They didn't just fail to erase Yoon Menlong. They turned him into something uncontainable. Because stories can be buried. Files can be deleted. Witnesses can be scattered. But when hundreds of thousands demand justice together, when the truth is sung instead of shouted, when silence is answered with memory, the ending is no longer theirs to control. The streets didn't erupt the way authorities expected. There were no burning barricades, no wild chaos, no rage screaming itself hoarse. What spread instead was something far more unsettling. Coordination. At precisely the same minute across multiple cities, people stopped moving. Traffic lights changed, but cars didn't go. Cafes went quiet. Phones were lifted, screens glowing like thousands of small moons. The leaked footage played again, muted this time, while Yoon Menlong's song hummed softly through shared speakers. Silence became the loudest protest anyone had ever witnessed. Cameras mounted on street poles recorded rows of people standing perfectly still, eyes fixed forward, hands shaking not with fear but with restraint. It looked rehearsed. It wasn't. It was instinct, something collective, something unspoken. Officials watching the feeds felt it immediately. This wasn't outrage. This was resolve. Behind closed doors, emergency meetings stretched into the early hours. Screens filled with data streams showing the same symbols being shared again and again. The chalk circle, the intersecting lines, the waveform from the song translated into geometry. Someone whispered, "They're connecting it." Someone else replied, "They already have." The rumors hardened into threads of truth. A former contractor surfaced anonymously, voice altered, face hidden, claiming the abandoned lot had been under temporary jurisdiction the night Yoon was taken. Another leak showed a maintenance request filed hours before the incident. Approval stamped without a signature. No name. No trace. Just authorization. That detail ignited something fierce. People began mapping timelines. When the van appeared. When the power flickered in Yoon's building. When the hidden phone rang. When the drone feed glitched. The pattern tightened like a noose around a truth that had nowhere left to hide. Then came the footage no one expected. A security clip from a nearby intersection surfaced online for less than 6 minutes before disappearing again. But 6 minutes was enough. It showed the black van paused at a red light, Yoon inside, head raised just slightly, and reflected in the van's darkened window. A face. Clearer than ever before. Not the hooded enforcer. Not a stranger. Someone people recognized. The clip froze. Screenshots spread. Whispers turned to shouts. The name wasn't confirmed, but it didn't need to be. The resemblance was enough to fracture the narrative completely. If this was real, if someone visible, someone untouchable, someone woven into respectable systems had been present, Then this was no longer a rumor. It was exposure. The 710,000 grew restless, not loud, not violent, but relentless. They organized digital sit-ins, flooding official channels with a single phrase repeated endlessly. Explain the silence. Every unanswered question became its own accusation. Inside the apartment building where Yoon recorded his final song, lights flickered again for the first time since his death. A neighbor reported hearing piano notes, 3 of them, the same 3 Yoon used to test tuning before recording. Investigators dismissed it as electrical interference. No one else did. People returned to the building, standing outside in clusters, phones raised, recording everything. Someone projected Yoon's lyrics onto the brick wall opposite his window. The words stretched tall and luminous against the night. Remember me standing, even when I fall. And then something cracked. A woman stepped forward during a live broadcast, face uncovered, voice shaking but steady enough to carry. She said she had been one of the 6 who fled the apartment that night. She said she hadn't slept since. She said the running never stopped, not in her dreams, not in her thoughts, not in the echo of Yoon's final breath hitting the floor. They told us to forget, she said. They said silence would keep us safe. Her eyes filled, but she didn't look away. It didn't. She described the hidden phone. The message. The moment the air changed. She confirmed what everyone suspected but no one had proven. Yoon wasn't alone when he collapsed. Someone else had already been there. The feed cut abruptly. But it was too late. Her words spread faster than any footage ever could. Inside anonymous forums linked to the organization, panic finally leaked through in raw, unfiltered language. Containment failed. Witness non-compliance escalating. Song amplification irreversible. The phrase repeated like a death toll. Irreversible. The streets remained calm. Too calm. People didn't need to shout anymore. The truth was moving on its own now, propelled by memory, music, and momentum. Yoon Menlong's name trended not as a headline, but as a question. What did he see? Who ordered it? Why did they think silence would work? And above all, who is next? Because once a story stops being about one man, once it becomes about a system that feeds on erasure, it stops having an ending. Somewhere, someone rewatched the goodbye song again, focusing on the pause after the line about becoming a number. 17 beats. Always 17. And for the first time since this began, fear shifted sides. The people who demanded justice weren't going anywhere. They were standing, listening, waiting for the truth to finally speak back.